Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Pack the Rock Podcast. Of course, it is Liv, it's Will, it's Ava, and it's Nick. IU just beat Charlotte 52-14, and it was a good game in Memorial Stadium. What are your guys' opening thoughts?
I mean, it was another blowout win for Indiana. They looked dominant once again offensively. Defense had an interesting end of the first half, which I feel like I've said almost after every week so far this year, but I mean, they came back the second half, shut them out. So it kind of looked like a typical Indiana game so far this season.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely saw the defense struggle early on, but like Will said, they came back and they adjusted, and I think that really helped in the game and made a huge difference, especially in that second half. So it was really good to see that, and they've really been kind of taking charge of the red zone and scoring in the red zone almost every time they're there, and that's been really nice to see.
Yeah, Curtis Rourke looked great once again. Indiana's ground game was phenomenal. 6 rushing touchdowns, which hasn't happened in a very long time. Very sure-handed with the ball, didn't turn it over. But one thing I was kind of concerned about was the amount of rushing yards they allowed. And Coach Signetti talked about it yesterday, how they weren't really swarming to the ball. The energy wasn't really there defensively. Charlotte rushed for over 130 yards, and Indiana was averaging under 60 rushing yards allowed per game entering their final non-conference game. It'd be interesting to see what adjustments they make this week because Maryland, a team coming in, they could do a lot more damage than Charlotte did in that respect. So there are still some things to clean up, but overall it was a very solid way to close out the non-conference side of the schedule.
Why do you think it is that sometimes the defense kind of leads up in the first half? The second half, they always kick it into gear, and it's almost like the team will not score in the second half. But that first half, it's kind of a slow start for the defense. Why do you guys feel like that is?
I mean, most of it's just they're still figuring out the offense. I mean, obviously they have game film and they have an idea of what they're going to run, but the offense can put those set plays together for each drive. I know a lot of coaches do it to start the game. They might have one coming out of the quarter or have one, for the end of half, which is what it's looked like for every team so far. Is they kind of just put together that one drive where Indiana's defense just isn't really prepared. And the fatigue plays into it too, because, I mean, that's the other thing you notice. It's the end of the first half. These guys are tired. They've already played that first half of football. But they're already running all over this offense. So, I mean, it's a mixture of the offense just kind of scheming the defense. And, I mean, it's going to happen, especially a drive or two here and there. So it's nothing to really be worried about. But the fatigue also plays a factor. So it's nothing really that concerns me. But, I mean, it's just Indiana. They just got beat for a drive or two.
And so when you look at their defense, it's strong, offense is strong, but now you're 2 games away from being bowl eligible. Is that something that Signetti should have an eye on right now, or is it just go game by game right now? We're just opening up into Big Ten Conference with Maryland now.
I think to say it doesn't sit in the back of anybody's mind is wrong, but I don't think that's his concern right now. I think his concern is, and I mean, he talks about it every single week, humble and hungry, enjoy this one for 24 hours, and then it's about what's up next. He's only focused on the game that week, what's ahead of him, and making sure that he's got his players and his team ready to go so that they can have a potential win. So, I mean, is it in the back of his mind? Sure, but I personally don't think it's his first priority right now.
Yeah, one thing he likes to talk about is how no team in college football can afford to go backwards. And so you want to make sure you're getting better every week. And I know it sounds cliche, but every program is focused on making sure they play their best football at the end of the season and that they progress towards that goal every single week. So you can't think about bowl games. You can't think about the college football playoff. You can't think about Heisman's or any of that. You just got to think about the opponent coming in. And in IU's case, Maryland is a very good team, and they've talked about it already. This is a level of test that they haven't faced yet. So it's going to be very critical for them to prepare for this game very strongly because Maryland could come out and, I think, surprise a lot of people in Bloomington this Saturday.
And so let's get straight into Maryland, like you said, Nick. So they go against Maryland at home. Maryland's 3-1 with their only loss. Was against Michigan State, and that was still such a close game. But UConn, Virginia, Villanova, all wins for them, and their quarterbacks, Billy Edwards Jr. has been going off. What's the strong piece in Maryland that IU really needs to look out for?
I think, honestly, it's not so much Billy Edwards Jr. as it is his wide receiver one, Ty Felton. He's one of the guys that came back. Obviously, they lost to Lia Tagovailoa, but Ty Felton is fantastic once again this year. I mean, he's been averaging over 150 receiving yards per game, catching a touchdown pass in every single game. He's going to be their primary target going into this game. It's going to be interesting to see how IU handles him defensively because IU's got some very strong defensive backs, D'Angelo Pons, Amari Farrell, Sean Asbury. It's going to be interesting to see how Indiana matches up with him. And, then for Maryland, you got guys like Caden Prather, Dylan Wade in that wide receiver room. Those are the guys who might have to step up if Indiana doubles Ty Felton. But certainly I think Felton is a guy who could decide this game one way or the other for Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Felton's that dude. I mean, that's kind of what it's looked like on tape. He gets open almost every other play, if not every play. He beat UConn on deep shots, but what impressed me most was his route running against MSU. I mean, he had a slot fade for a touchdown that was just a beautiful ball, and then an even better catch. It was back corner of the end zone, kind of drew up perfectly on a slot fade in the red zone. But yeah, that Ty Felton-Edwards connection, that's going to be what Indiana has to look out for. I would imagine Pons is probably going to follow him all night or all afternoon since the noon game. But yeah, I would say Ty Felton's that guy to look out for sure.
I think a big thing is also both QBs are strong, right? There's Edwards Jr. and 8 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. But then you have Curtis Rourke, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. Is it going to also come down to just which QB plays, better? Which QB has a better game? Or is it just going to be overall team?
I mean, it's going to be the team that plays better. This is still football. There's still 22 guys starting, not to mention all the subs that are going to come in. So it's going to be, what accumulation of guys plays better. Obviously, the QB play is going to matter a lot on offense, especially with two teams that have a strong passing attack. But this is also still Big Ten football. That run game is going to matter a lot. So it's going to be more of a team affair, but obviously quarterback play is going to have, a good bit to do with it. But I don't think it's going to decide the game by any stretch of the imagination.
And then a big thing as well is when you look at the schedule they have right now. So every team after this is Big Ten. And they said Maryland's the true next test. But 5 games are home for the remainder of their season, only 3 away. Is that favoring into IU's schedule? Or is it, each game is still going to be hard regardless because now you're just in Big Ten?
I feel like the home advantage helps. You're in your own place. You take away that travel time. You're familiar with the surrounding. Obviously, you've got your own fans there, and if more people start attending, that electricity, that vicinity becomes more helpful to you. But I still think that you can't rule any game out. You can't just think, oh, I'm home. Like, it's going to be an easy one in the pocket. It's not. Any team, I think, is coming to play. So,
yeah, you look at the next 3. Maryland comes to town. You go to Northwestern. You play on Lake Michigan. That's going to be interesting because Northwestern just lost to Washington 24-5.
It's also going to be cool to watch, though.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. I'm excited to get up there. And then a bye week and then Nebraska. And that's where that last one, where the attendance question could really come in. It's homecoming, but Nebraska's fan base travels as well as anyone in the country. So there's going to be a lot of red, but it's going to be interesting to see the split between IU fans and Nebraska fans. But it's the Big Ten. It's every single game is tough, and it doesn't matter what history says. Northwestern's been a very good program these last couple of years, and Maryland beat the brakes off IU last year. And obviously, this is a very different Indiana team. But Coach Signetti said it in his presser yesterday. Maryland's going to be very confident coming into this game, knowing their history against IU. They've won the last 3 games against Indiana. And I think in their minds, there's no reason they can't make it 4 in a row. So this is a game that could surprise a lot of people and how close it's probably going to be.
I mean, it's like you said, I think the big thing is everyone's going to be in red. So maybe just treat it like all of them are IU fans. And then IU can have a cleaner game. But a big thing, too, is Maryland's forced an interception on each team that they've played besides Villanova. And does that play a factor when it comes to Curtis Rourke's play? I mean, no interceptions, has yet to get sacked. Is this something where Curtis Rourke might have to take a hit or two or might have to clean up the game a little bit?
It's not going to be clean up his game because the picks that were thrown to Maryland were thrown straight at the DBs. So it wasn't really their coverage playing well because their coverage plays so soft. There's not really much play on the ball that their DBs even get the chance to make. It's more just the quarterbacks that they played against overthrew the ball that poorly. I mean, there were some plays in the Michigan State game where, their quarterback Childs threw one straight to a Maryland defender like just straight in the end zone like he's throwing him a touchdown. So it's not going to matter on Rourke cleaning up his play, especially with how accurate he's been these last 4 weeks. So I think he's going to be fine. Their DBs are not really anything to worry about, especially for Rourke.
And offensively and defensively, what player do you think will stand out this game for IU? Is there one that comes into mind specifically?
I mean, it's tough because IU's got so many weapons on both sides of the ball. But we go back to that matchup between Ty Felton and the Indiana defense. I would assume D'Angelo Pons is going to be
Make or break.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be really fun to watch. It'll be really, really fun to watch to see how those two go and if Indiana switches the matchup at all. If they play zone against him, I don't know. I don't know what the Indiana defensive scheme is going to look like, but D'Angelo Pons is going to be really fun to watch defensively. I also think Aiden Fisher, it looked like he was a little bit banged up against Charlotte. I saw he came off the field, didn't quite know what it was. But if he's healthy and he can get to Billy Edwards in the backfield, then Indiana's fans are going to get loud and they're going to respond to that. So Pons and Fisher defensively, and then Curtis Rourke. I mean, he's becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the conference and in the country, if you ask me. Just how sure-handed he is with the ball. He even rushed for a touchdown last week.
There we go.
Which nobody had on their bingo card. But Curtis is a really fun quarterback to watch. He's going to make the correct decisions with the ball every single time. And that goes a long way. It's been a long time since Indiana's had quarterback play of this caliber.
So what do you guys have the score being at the end of the fourth, Maryland, IU this weekend? Well, take us off.
I don't think Indiana's going to cover. I think it's like 30-24 or 24-20, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Indiana's going to cover that spread that they've got set for them right now.
Okay. Ava?
My prediction is 27-20.
Okay.
That's how I feel.
Simple. All right.
I think Ty Felton catches a couple touchdown passes.
Couple?
A couple. Both in the first half. Near the end of the half, probably, because that's just the trend.
Yeah, I'd gamble on that.
I think Maryland, second half, they have to settle for a field goal, and that's it. I'm going to say Indiana 28-17 over Maryland.
Okay. I had 35-31.
Yeah, okay.
Keeping it pretty close. I think we all can agree this game's not going to be both teams can hope not a blowout on each end. I feel like this will be a close game, and it'll be a fun Big Ten game. IU and Maryland this weekend in Memorial Stadium. We will see you guys next week when they go all the way to Northwestern.